The New Hampshire Colony by Ben and Devin.
One of the 13 colonies during the 1600s was New Hampshire. The New Hampshire colony is founded in the year 1623. The land was founded by John Mason and Ferdinando Gorges. It is now 1626, and the Pilgrims found the land and landed in Plymouth. The Pilgrims were mostly fishermen, and not long after, they started to build fish processing buildings and a main fort. Fishing was an important part of building New Hampshire and was the main way they got food and other resources. More resources were important, such as lumber and fur. Many native tribes lived there in New Hampshire before John Mason settled there. Some of the tribes' names were the Pennacook people, the Sokaki people, and the Pigwacket people. All of these groups spoke the language of the Abenaki people. Most of the tribes were hunters and settled by rivers, so they could have natural resources on standby. The first significant event that we were talking about is the giant wave of diseases that fell over Abenaki. The two main diseases that killed the Abenaki were smallpox and chickenpox. When the Europeans came, they brought those diseases and killed many people in the Abenaki tribe. 3/4 of the Abenaki died from the disease and went on to wipe many other villages near the area. One of the next significant events is when the Pilgrims got to Plymouth. The Pilgrims went to New Hampshire to practice their religion freely. After they got to New Hampshire, they built a plantation that is known as the Plymouth Plantation. The last significant event was the Stamp Act protest that happened in 1765. The Stamp Act protest was when many people started to move to New Hampshire and settled there. In 1765, the British government put out a new tax called the Stamp Act. This put taxes on anything made of paper, such as books, playing cards, and newspapers. This was a sign that the people of New Hampshire needed independence from Britain. The economy of New Hampshire was built off of farming and natural resources. The most important resources in New Hampshire were fur, lumber, and fish. There are more than 1,000 pounds of fish in New Hampshire, and it was the most popular food there. The most important fur in New Hampshire were beaver pelts. Beaver pelts were used for clothes, hats, and cloaks. The beaver pelts were also important for trade with the Abenaki. Farming was the way that most people got their food. The most grown crops were wheat, corn, berries, and apples. The farms also produced things such as leather, milk, dairy products, and maple syrup. Next up is religion. The religion that was most practiced in New Hampshire was Congregationalism. In New Hampshire, almost every town had a Congregationalism parish. Congregationalism is a branch of Protestant Christianity. Congregationalism highlights the responsibilities and rights of the congregation. In each church, everyone that lived in that town could go to church and learn about their religion.
In the 1600s, New Hampshire's landscape was characterized by rugged terrain and dense forests. The region featured rolling hills, valleys, and the White Mountains, adding a variety to the scenery. The coastline was rocky with small bays and inlets that created natural harbors. Several rivers, including the Memorac and the Piscataqua, meandered through the area. The rocky soil made farming challenging, but the abundant forests offered timber, while the rivers and coastlines supported fishing and trade. In the 1600s, the land in New Hampshire was primarily used for subsistence farming, with settlers growing hardy crops like corn, beans, and squash. Due to the rocky soil and short growing season, agriculture was limited. Livestock farming was also significant, with dairy cows providing milk, cheese, and butter. The abundant forests were crucial for timber used in building homes and ships. Additionally, the rivers and coastal areas were used for fishing and trade, supporting the local economy. In the 1600s in New Hampshire, spring was usually cool with rising temperatures and frequent rain, making the start of the growing season. In the summer, it was short and warm, ideal for limited crops. In the fall, it was crisp with a colorful foliage and time for harvesting and preparing for winter. Winter was long, cold, and snowy, with temperatures often being below freezing and snow making travel difficult. John Winthrop in 1638 described New Hampshire as being a very pleasant and delightful place and having good land and fruitful soil. William Wood in 1634 noted that the region had good soil and was well watered. But 1642 by Eleanor Fairchild, she said New Hampshire in the 1600s was a land of rugged charm where the rocky hills and dense forests were both a trial and treasure for those who ventured there. New Hampshire in the 1600s offered rugged beauty, valuable timber, and fishing opportunities. Despite the rocky soil, settlers could farm and raise livestock. The region promised economic prospects and a chance for new beginners.